It is over.
Hey everybody, welcome to another interview session with the Insiders, and today we are honored to have with us Marie Shadows. Marie, welcome into our show, and we really appreciate you taking some time with us today.
Thank you guys for having me on the show. It's an honor. It's a pleasure. Let's get down to talking about wrestling.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know I saw you have a podcast. I saw you were talking about some AEW and stuff like that. We'll get into that in a little bit because Jeff and I have a preview show for Fyter Fest tonight as well. So we're pretty excited about that. So as I usually ask everybody, so where did you get started watching wrestling? A lot of people tell us it was from when they were kids on up. So tell us your story about when you got into wrestling.
So I was around probably 7 years old. My dad started off having me watch NWA back in the days, Mid-South Wrestling, any type of old school wrestling that he knew. And then from there, it just blossomed into me never stop watching. I remember Undertaker being one of the creatives to have me want to be a writer for professional wrestling. So I got into getting my writing degree and just working towards writing stories and trying to get into WWE, just trying to get into professional wrestling. And growing up, one of my favorite wrestlers was Ric Flair. So I've always been around the business to learn from everyone and anyone just because I love it.
That's awesome. Now we're going to discuss. I have to discuss this with you later because I know we have a mutual friend, Fowl. I know you were talking to him, and he had mentioned that you were looking into maybe doing some wrestling fiction. So we got to talk about that later. That really intrigues me because. Yeah, there. Like you had just said. I mean, obviously, a character like the Undertaker and some other characters that we have going on in wrestling today. If anybody would do something like that, whether they do a book or a graphic novel or even like a movie with some of the stories that these characters have, would be absolutely amazing. So we definitely got to talk about that later. Did you go to school for? Was it journalism that you went to school for?
No, I went to school for specifically creative writing and literature. And then I also got my publishing certificate as well. So if I ever wanted to open up a publishing company to have other writers come on board and publish their own stuff under my house, let's say, I could be able to do that.
Oh, wow. That's really awesome. That's cool. Congratulations. So you got into it very young, obviously. And I have a similar story, about 8 years old or so. And my dad got me into things kind of. So, but you got into NWA first. So that's interesting because I know a lot of people from, my age group anyway, we were watching old WWF and stuff like that growing up. So, but obviously NWA was big in like the 70s and the 80s and stuff like that. So, and you said Ric Flair is your favorite. So how did you did you start watching those matches right away? Were they on TV when you were growing up? Is that how you kind of got into NWA?
I believe my dad still had like some leftover like tapes from back in the day. So I watched it on there, and then I tried to go online and try to find as much wrestling footage and as much wrestling library as I can about, NWA and then like WCCW, I should say, and all the rest of the old school stuff. Ring of Honor helped too, because I like looking at their library to get into Ring of Honor and stuff like that. So it was just a matter of trying to search for wrestling content.
Gotcha.
And learn about the business.
Now, have you followed? Again, I'm interested to know. Do you follow the? Did you still follow the NWA going into today? So the show that they had on YouTube, obviously now it's kind of shut down because of the the CEO being let go or stepping down. So it's kind of shut down now. But were you following that at all?
Yeah, I was really super excited that NWA actually decided to come back into modern day wrestling because it's a little bit different, but it felt like old school, man. It really did. It got me excited. I have on my podcast, the Square Circle podcast, I have a couple episodes reviewing NWA. However, I can't keep up with all the wrestling that's being put out, so I haven't been able to catch up on like all the episodes that I missed. However, NWA does really have a solid show, which it's really enjoyable.
Yeah, Jeff and I really got into that. I started watching it. I didn't get it from the beginning when Power started, but we started watching it about maybe 4 or 5 episodes in, and both of us really enjoyed it. And like you, I like the old school feel of it because I'm used to watching Saturday morning wrestling, which was also studio shows. So I think it's cool, like having that crowd interacting with the wrestlers and that kind of thing. And it's a shame, really, because I think that without the thing that happened with Logano, which is a different story altogether, obviously, but even without that, it would have been really tough for them to continue because of the virus. They're a thing that really needs that crowd interaction in that studio, and when you can't have them in there, it's really, really not possible. And I really hope that they can somehow get back because I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I hope so too. I mean, they could try to have some wrestlers in the crowd and try that way, but I don't think that it'll capture the same way.
Yeah, I agree. I was really into some of the characters. I loved some of like the question mark. Oh my God. What a silly gimmick, but like I absolutely loved that character and the backstories they were giving some people, obviously Nick Aldis as their champion. And I was really enjoying it. I had heard that Zicky Dice now left the company. So I don't know. Well, I guess we'll see how things are going to go now that everything's going on with that. And I hope that they come back. So
I mean, NWA can hire me. Like,
there you go. There you go. Sure.
I asked them on their tweet. I was like, "Hey, hire me. Let me help you out."
There you go. We know some people from NWA. We got a lot of friends down there, so we know some guys that do the NWA pod. Our good friend Gary Horn, Robert Stinson does that. We also know Mr. Adam Rotella, who does 10 Pounds of Podcast, who did a lot of NWA work. So, if they're listening, there you go. Get in touch with Marie. She's willing to help you out.
Yeah, man.
So listen, what did you? So you watched the NWA growing up, and obviously, did you stay with NWA, or did you kind of switch to WWE along the line and start watching more of that? I know you mentioned Undertaker. We all know what just happened with him with the last ride and everything like that. Are you gonna I guess I'll ask you a 2-part question. Number one, do you think he's really done? Do you think he might ever come back with, if Vince ever does need him at some point? And 2, what do you think his legacy is going to be for that 30 years that he's been in the business?
So the first one, no wrestler is ever done in this business. It's just something that calls you back no matter what. Undertaker would have to be really stern with Vince to be like, nah, man, I can't come back this time. If I do, my hip is really going to explode. But if he does, I don't even know what he can do anymore in the business because he gave us everything. Once his streak got broken, that was it. Like, right there was a huge fuck up. And that should never happen.
Yeah.
And the way that it happened, the referee should have at least been like, "Oh, there's something in my eye," and be like, "Undertaker, pick a damn hand up." I would definitely would have done that if I was the referee. Now his 30-year career is unmatched. There would definitely be no other Undertaker. He could have passed the torch of the Undertaker entity, so to speak, to Damian Priest down in NXT, because that's the closest guy to come to his size and sort of be that Undertaker entity. But the 30-year history of Undertaker, it's solidified in whatever Hall of Fame they're gonna put him in and whatever else he does in life. It's Undertaker.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. What do you think about guys like I know you mentioned Damian Priest. What do you think about Karrion Kross?
Oh man, his valet makes him. Without her, he's nothing.
Scarlett, yeah.
She makes him. If she was not there, he would not get over as much. And I see the tweets on him. I don't like his name. I'm gonna call him Killer Cross. It's just that she makes him be the character. Without her there, nobody would really be talking about him. But then again, I probably don't pay attention to his matches. Like, I remember watching the Takeover pay-per-view, and I was just like, yo, why are you dominating over Ciampa? For the past years, Ciampa has been either destroying people and or being on the same level as people in his matches. But yet that you come along and you're more powerful than him? Like, it didn't make sense.
Yeah.
But I'm not really a fan of Killer Cross, but I do appreciate the fact of like how it looks when the entrance happens with him and Scarlett. But like I said,
his entrance is phenomenal. Yeah, I definitely agree. So go ahead.
I was just gonna say that Scarlett makes him.
Yeah. I dig the entrance. I always did. And yeah, I mean, look, I agree. I'm even from back in the day, I'm a guy who likes storytelling. And I enjoy the characters that follow along with storylines. So with Killer Cross or with Karrion Kross, I think that it was said right at the start that Triple H said he was gonna fast track him. So it really looks like that's what they're doing. They're pushing him through, and they're kind of having him just go through everyone. And now it may end up where it could be either Keith Lee. Or Adam Cole, whichever one of them wins that, and they carry 2 belts. If Cross comes in the picture, Cross can end up beating them and have 2 belts right off the bat. And I mean, you can't really get much more fast track than that.
You can't, unless you're Sheamus.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, obviously you have to like storylines as well. You seem like you're, obviously you like you look to be doing fiction and stuff like that with storylines and that kind of stuff. So tell me some of the characters that got you into liking that kind of stuff. Because I know for me, obviously The Undertaker, obviously a lot of the guys that were back in the 80s, because you had a lot of storylines with those characters. Bray Wyatt's character today is really doing it for me. I love what he's doing, and I love his storyline. And but yeah, who are some of the characters that got you into the storylines?
So obviously, first and foremost is definitely like Undertaker and Kane, along with Paul Bearer. That whole story. Whoa, that was like fast track for me to be like, I love this. Macho Man does it for me too with his storytelling. Jake the Snake Roberts does it for me as well. Let's see. Obviously, Ric Flair, because Ric Flair could definitely tell a story in his promos. And he had very great chemistry with Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. And Ricky didn't even need to talk. It was just their matches had the story in their matches, which was great. Stone Cold could definitely tell stories, but he's more I'm gonna beat the shit out of you and then have a beer. Let's see. Who else can I say from there? I mean, we could get into some. I don't know what I'm calling modern, but Kenny Omega is always a big creative influence on me as well when he tells his stories. You also have like the Young Bucks telling their stories in a very unique way that people don't give them enough credit for. Let me see who else. I know I'm probably missing some other wrestlers. But yeah. I mean, if you want to jump off from there, but yeah.
Yeah, look, it's really cool when you see like good stories being told. I think, and I'll ask you this too. Do you think that, I mean, we live in a instant gratification kind of a world. Everybody kind of wants instant gratification. People, when even when a movie comes out, they want spoilers. They want to know what's going on. They want to know what's happening. Do you think that people are like too rushed now? Like, you see somebody kind of developing something and people just want the end. They want to know what's going on. Like some of the stuff going on in WWE now is you had the hacker storyline, which looks like it's on hold now. You had Bray Wyatt's storyline. You have, some other things that are going on that are really cool things. But then, it almost seems like people are like, well, why aren't we hearing anything? Why aren't we getting resolution to this? Do you think like people are just, that they just want it to happen too fast and it's kind of ruins long-term storytelling?
Yes. That is a like 1000% yes, man. That's why I appreciate being a fan of Being the Elite because they know how to do long term storytelling. And I've never been the one to be like, oh my God, hurry up the storyline. I want to know the end. No, I've been along for the ride for that. So I appreciate long term storytelling. It's just that sometimes I think that because we're in a digital age where a tweet lasts like 20 minutes or your attention span lasts like 5 minutes, people just want to know the end. But I bet you that come like if you tell somebody the end of something and then next week you ask them the same question that you asked them like today, they're probably not going to remember it, you know. But I really hate when fans are like, oh, let's hurry up to the ending. Or if a wrestling company gives you a new character and you don't understand the character just after one day, they're like, oh, let's cancel him. You know, like I wish that people would give it time and patience to develop because, you know, obviously the wrestlers are human too, and they have a creative mind. If not, they wouldn't technically be in the business, but let them do what they do. You know, let them do what they do. They're going to try something. If they fail, maybe they could tweak it and be a better person.
Yeah.
Be a better wrestler, you know.
Yeah, no, that's very true. Like I said, I think people just want answers too quick, and they, you know, and bigger payoffs come from longer storylines. So, when you finally get something down the road, and I know I had read rumors about that hacker storyline might be on hold because they want to wait until fans are back in the buildings, which, you know, I guess I can understand that because, you know, you really want a good payoff. You want fans to be in there to see it. So, I totally get it. And I know the same thing people were talking about back, I think it was last year when Bray Wyatt wrestled Seth Rollins in that Hell in a Cell. Everyone was like, oh my God, this is horrible. This character's done. It's finished. He's over. But nobody gives anybody, like you said, they just don't give they don't have the patience. They don't give guys the time to tell a good story. And that's something I really think is lacking in wrestling today. What about you?
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Fun fact, right after that Hell in a Cell main event, I called up my friends and I was like, hey, let's start this podcast because I'm pissed off. And because of that's how the Square Circle podcast got started. And then now it's what it is today, which we can talk about later. But yeah, I really do think that sometimes fans get really overly emotional and really angry over stuff that's not really in our control. But at the same time, the way that the match was going in that main event was just really, really off. And it was like, you guys should have rethought how to do it, you know. Just something. Just don't let him continue hitting him with the chair and making it look weird and stuff. You know, I understand what they were going with when Wyatt was doing that with the other wrestlers. But then when it got to Rollins, it was like, what are you guys doing? Are you guys intentionally wanting to like bury Rollins, like so to speak, and have people turn on him? Like, this is not how you make a heel. You know, that's not how you do it. I just think that sometimes fans should just wait it out rather than automatically jumping. But it's a mob mentality. That's all it is.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't kind of know. I mean, obviously, everybody came away like bewildered after that match because you know that they had built the Fiend up so much. And I still think to this day, and there were rumors swirling around that too, and I still think that some of it is true about the fact that I don't think they wanted him in that title picture that soon. I think that was supposed to be Drew McIntyre. Drew was actually hurt and was out of the business for a while, so I think that they inserted him in there because he just was unbelievably popular, and they just threw him in there because of that popularity, and then I kind of don't think they knew where they were going to go with him. I even read that Vince had the footholds installed on that cage for them to climb because initially I had heard that the storyline was supposed to be that they were going to be on top of the cage, similar to Foley and Undertaker, and that Seth was going to throw the Fiend off the cage. He was going to go through a table. That was what I mean, I will never know if that's true or not, but that's what I heard was supposed to happen. So yeah, it just was all over the place, and it just, I don't know. I really don't even know to this day where they're going to go with it. But on the other hand, it seemed like they course corrected, and it really seems like Bray himself is able to overcome a lot of this bad stuff, like the stuff with Goldberg. Oh man, what a lousy thing. That was horrible. Having him lose that way to Goldberg, who couldn't even lift him up to do a jackhammer, but yet he still comes out and still continues a storyline on Twitter and on social media and stuff like that. So kudos to him for doing that. I mean, it could have been the fact that his character could have been buried at that point, but he came right out and moved on. So I think we need to see more of that.
I just need to see smarter direction from WWE, and that's it. It's all about you have to think about the big picture when it comes to certain type of wrestlers, especially when it's like a Bray Wyatt character when he plays the Fiend. He is a big picture storyline character that you insert him into the title picture or whatever the case may be. And then you have like the other guys who are just like short-term picture, and then like those storylines can get wrapped up right away. Like long-term storytelling with the Fiend would have to be with him and well, not really the Fiend, Bray Wyatt and Randy Orton. That storyline when they got to the House of Horrors type of match, like that's really long-term storytelling, and those two guys are the big picture storytelling. Like Vince and everyone in WWE is scrambling to try to get something on TV to try to please us while pleasing themselves and the wrestlers to make sense. Because nothing really makes sense anymore. The dots are really not connecting, and sometimes things just don't fall how they're supposed to fall. That's because if you have way too many people telling you one thing or multiple things, who are you really supposed to listen to? Yep.
Yeah, and we saw that they just changed their whole creative department over, and obviously now Bruce Pritchard's in charge of everything. So he's going to be running the show pretty much on both shows now. Heyman's kind of out of the picture, so we'll see. We'll see how that goes. Hopefully they'll, like you said, do some course correcting and get things straightened out a little bit there. So. All right. Well, listen, let's get into your podcast, because I know you had said you started that when Hell in a Cell finished. So tell us about how you got started doing podcasting, and tell us a little bit about your show.
So I never really thought about podcasting at all. I guess my perspective just changed because I found it would be easier to talk rather than to type everything down. So, after Hell in a Cell, I just started a Square Circle podcast with my friends. Due to like technical difficulties and like time zones, we no longer do it, but they're always welcome to come by and, chat about wrestling. So originally, my plan was that the Square Circle podcast is basically a wrestling podcast that has no gimmicks. It tries to cover any and all wrestling. So that meant like New Japan, NWA Power, WWE Raw, SmackDown, NXT, and even AEW Dark and Dynamite. I tried it. I succeeded here and there, but I kind of burnt myself out. So now all I do is review as best I can AEW. The second part to the Square Circle podcast is also to give a spotlight to indie companies out here in New York City and New Jersey, because I also go with my cousin, who's a professional wrestler under the name of JD Alpha. I go with him to his shows. I help out. I become ring crew. I become the ticket person. I help out the wrestlers in the back. I help out companies. I gave a spotlight company review to Titan Championship Wrestling out there in New Jersey, which you can definitely find on my wrestling newsletter, squarecirclepodcast.substack.com, and like other stuff there too. I also interview wrestlers as best as I can. I have an interview up with JD Alpha, and I have an interview up with another indie wrestler named Matt Awesome, and want to get more of that onto my podcast and everything else. So that's basically the Square Circle podcast.
Oh, that's awesome, man. Yeah, we enjoy talking to indie wrestlers as well. We had a few on our show, along with, I've got a couple friends that are in that. One of my friends I interviewed and talked to a little bit ago, Jeff, my co-host, was in indie wrestling also. So it's cool to talk to. Yeah, it's cool to talk to some of those guys, because completely different atmosphere between them and and obviously the shows that are on TV and stuff like that. And it's cool to see how much they really throw into that, and they really do. Like we were talking to Holiday, who is an independent wrestler. She wrestles a lot with Thunder Rosa for NWA, and we were talking to some of them, and it's really neat to like their drive is incredible. Like her, she had spoken about how motivated she is, and we asked her about what her goals were and does she want to be on TV, and she kind of just said, you know what, if it happens, great. If not, I'm just going to go out and be like the best I can be. And then they also told us, like you had mentioned there, like just doing the stuff behind the scenes. Like Thunder Rosa mentioned how she kind of started off before she got into the business, really like getting to the shows, helping them to set up the ring, helping them to do all that kind of stuff. It's really cool to hear like how they really earn their keep and everything like that.
Yeah, definitely, man. I always love helping out, putting up the ring and learning how to do it. Even if like the cables for the ring ropes are like super heavy, so I would never touch those. But like just assembling it with the wood and stuff here and there, and making sure other wrestlers are good and just checking up on them. I do want to put over some more other indie wrestlers, just because you were talking about how the one wrestler you interviewed about like her goals and stuff, and like to be the best that she can be. There's a tag team called Too Good, and they basically, you never call them a tag team. You have to call them a two-man faction, and I think that's a very genius way to get yourself over.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, that's really cool. That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, look, these people don't understand how these guys have struggled through this last 3 months, because they really had the indies, kind of the bigger promotions, WWE, AEW, they kept going through this, but the indies couldn't. I mean, they just don't have the money to do it. These guys go from place to place, travel everywhere, and everything like that. So, people kind of forget that these guys really have it tough now, because they're not traveling, they're not going everywhere. These arenas are shut down that they go and they have these shows in. So, listen, we always try to say, hey, get out there and go to whether it's Pro Wrestling Tees or whether these people have their own websites, and try to support these guys, because it is really tough for them right now.
Yeah, it is. I even, I felt it, even though I don't like wrestle in the ring or take bumps, but like even me just going and being happy, because wrestling is my life and makes me the most happiest thing. It's my first love, other than my boyfriend. But, it's the idea of, this keeps a smile on my face. This is all I know. I don't know any other sport. I know professional wrestling inside and out. So I even took a hit of like, damn, I'm not going to see my buddies. Like, I'm not going to be able to help out here and there. So what I've been doing is either retweeting the companies that are on Twitter, just their stuff, checking in on some other wrestlers, and just, saying hi and what's up, and just making sure that they're okay. It's people, like I said, they don't really understand sometimes how it affects people. But obviously, I pull for all those guys, because they really are giving everything they have, traveling a lot. A lot of times they're going into these smaller places. I know Jeff had mentioned to me that, they're going to these small little gyms. They're not making much money to do it. They're just going out there and just doing it and just trying to get their names out there. And I mean, hats off to them, because, they do an amazing job of keeping that rolling. That's exactly how it is.
Yeah. So I know you mentioned AEW, so it seems to me like you're kind of a big fan of AEW now, and we are too. Obviously, it's fun because, and I look at it this way. When NWA just started up recently with NWA Power, and then we had AEW start up back in September, it's pretty exciting to get on board with like a new promotion. Not necessarily new with NWA, but to get on board at the beginning of something. Whereas, these other companies have been around for a long time. So it's cool to jump in. Have you watched AEW right from the start in September? And what do you think of the job they're doing so far?
I've watched AEW from the beginning, and then like I followed the guys through like their career. So like, I've been a very long-term supporter and love everything that, they do. However, on my podcast, I do sort of criticize some just tiny stuff that AEW just needs to fix. Sometimes I would like them to give more time to the women, more story to the women. They have a really solid foundation of their women's division. It's just that sometimes fans forget that being the elite helps out with the male division in their storytelling. The females don't have their own version of being the elite, so people are not gonna like understand the story, so to speak, as in terms of on the male side. That's why sometimes the female get like brushed over in AEW and don't have enough time to tell wonderful stories that I know that they could tell. So sometimes I criticize them on that, depending on how like matches go and stuff like that. But lately, the women have been improving. So I'm like, okay, awesome. This is good. The other tiny little criticisms would always be that Cody Rhodes does not need to bleed every single match.
I heard that in your podcast. Yeah.
So I've said it before, and I remember on one podcast, like I just ranted because I was like, I'm tired of these guys bleeding for no reason. Like, you know, depending on the storyline that you do, depending on what you talk about before the match, and even sometimes shoot on the fly in the match, you may end up like wanting to get busted open for the sake of the emotion, right? I totally get that. But how many times is Cody Rhodes going to bleed for the sake of the emotion, let's say? You know, I don't like that. Just have a clean match. I know you could wrestle your ass off. I know you could tell a great story without blood, unless like you really forgot to block and you hit the ring post and bam, there goes actual blood. You know, don't bleed. Just don't. Let's see. I think it's like those are like my main two gripes with AEW. Oh, and then also sometimes them missing opportunities to fight other wrestlers. And I've also complained on my podcast about Cody Rhodes having 15 minutes of fame for like his matches and his storylines. It doesn't really do long-term storytelling with the people that he just wrapped up feuds with, you know? Right. If that makes any sense. Because obviously I'm more invested in watching Matt and Nick Jackson, Kenny Omega and Hangman Page doing what they do best. I'm always more interested in that than what Cody has going on. And I might get heat for that, but that's okay. You know, it's just tiny little stuff and it's not too big. You know, they're still young. They can still fix some stuff. You know, eventually these EVPs do have to take a step back and probably relax a little bit because they don't really need to do as much now, you know? But other than that, like, I enjoy the product. I like now that on Dynamite you get to see the Dark results. And I think that they should use AEW Dark as a storyline breeding ground for maybe the women. So that way the women can have their own time, you know, because sometimes you can't fit everybody on Dynamite. So you have Dark and do it that way. Maybe that will help.
Yeah, great point. So I have a couple specific things to ask you about AEW.
Sure.
Talk to me about the Dark Order, because let me tell you, when this first started, and I saw the vignettes for that, I was all in. I even went to their website and I joined the Dark Order on their website. I was all in on the Dark Order. And then all of a sudden, you know, we started getting, okay, the Exalted One's coming. And, you know, people kind of thought it was going to be Matt Hardy. And then obviously we got Brody Lee, which was, you know, when he debuted, it was absolutely amazing. Yeah. The debut. But I mean, what did you think about where they went with that? So after Brody comes in, then all of a sudden they start having these little vignettes backstage where Brody's kind of doing stuff that may or may not have resembled Vince McMahon. A lot of people kind of got that thought that, you know, he's kind of poking fun at Vince with the guy sneezing and, you know, this kind of stuff. And so, I mean, where do you think the Dark Order is right now? Because I was really thinking this was going to be a big, you know, like a big faction. I was really thinking this was going to be like, it was going to be creepy. It was going to be, you know, really big thing. Now it kind of seems like they're going in a different direction. And you know, they're kind of looks like they're recruiting more people now. So, I mean, what do you think of the Dark Order so far?
When they first debuted the idea, it was really creepy. You know, they had a bunch of random people and they called them creepers and stuff. And I'm like, well, that is kind of creepy. You know, I'll stay away. I'm not joining just yet. But I appreciated the fact that they were doing something new and different to have like a scary element to AEW that like it's not always gonna be comedy jokes and high spots and spot fest and stuff. You have something serious that eventually they could come in, take all the title belts, and they have all the power in the land of AEW. And then they started doing the teasing us about the Exalted One, and people thought it was going to be Christopher Daniels at one point. It could have worked, but I don't think Daniels is up for doing stuff like that as much. You could definitely see that he's like slowing down here and there and needed when he's needed. And then when Brody Lee came out, those vignettes of him, quote unquote, trying to make fun of Vince McMahon, I loved every second of those. I loved every second of those because I was like, this is a different side of Brody Lee that I never seen because we all seen him with the Wyatt family. So you don't get to see the personality if he's always going to be with Wyatt. So now he's coming to his own. On the latest Being the Elite, there was just a funny segment where it's him walking down the hallway. Hangman Page comes in and tells him that, hey, I signed up to the Dark Order. Did you get my application? And he was like, you signed up. And then he gets into the room and throws the papers at the guys. Like, it's funny and I'm enjoying it. But I do need them to get back onto like a serious note. I think that sometimes having a rest period of being serious is also a good thing. I don't know where we're going with the Dark Order, and I really don't want to speculate because I want to enjoy it. I want to be there for the journey because I know that at one point, Brody Lee's just going to explode and be like, we got to take out the main guy and get the championship back,
Yeah, absolutely. I think my co-host Jeff has a question. Jeff, what would you like to ask Marie?
Yeah, I have a question here. In terms of the talent that's in AEW right now, if you could maybe give me one or two men and one or two women that you'd like to see get a little bit bigger push.
Oh. That's a really good question. I really gotta think about that. Because I've said this on my podcast too about like who should get a big push. Jungle Boy is the first person that jumps into my mind. He should get a push, like a really good push of probably. I think they should probably push him for the TNT Championship title, or at least the tag team titles with Luchasaurus, because that would be very interesting. It'll change the landscape of AEW. Brandon Cutler needs some type of push. He needs some type of win. Right now, he's like a huge baby face that's adorable, and he doesn't want no handouts, but he should definitely get a push. For the women's side, Penelope needs a push as well. She's really great in the ring, and I really love watching her. She does need a stronger push. And then I miss watching Leva Bates, who's playing the librarian. I was about to call her Blue Pants. She needs a push too, man. I miss watching her wrestle. I know that she can be really good in the ring, and I just don't want her to be just a side thing for the librarians. I want to see her in action.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Here's a somewhat controversial topic. Do you think AEW should pursue Tessa Blanchard?
Yeah. And I only hesitated because I definitely know that it's divided right now. I'm just gonna say this, that whatever happened between Tessa and like all the parties involved when that whole thing came out, it's between her and them. We were definitely not in the room. I was not in the room, so I would not, place blame on her or judge her in any way. She's still a human being. Regardless of that, if AEW does decide to pursue Tessa Blanchard to sign her, they're definitely going to have to try to keep the wholesomeness that is the women's division locker in AEW, because right now it's fine. But I would like her to go to AEW just to have those fantasy matches and, just to push the women a little bit better to have better matches and not be afraid to wrestle. Because sometimes I can definitely see it that some women hesitate when they throw like forearms or when they throw this and when they throw that. Sometimes it doesn't look believable. And then sometimes they're counting the steps for their choreography within the match. But if you have Tessa there, at least it could be a little more smoother. However, you might also ask me if I think Tessa should go to WWE. And there was a fan on Twitter that did a fantasy matchup of Tessa versus Charlotte. I would like to see that also. So right now it's up in the air for wherever Tessa's going to go. I don't pay attention to the dirt sheets, but it's up in the air where she's going to go. And where she goes, we'll just watch.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And here's a kind of another tough question because I agree. I mean, I'd like to see her on either roster because I think either one we get some phenomenal matches. But here, Joe's probably not gonna like me for this, but we'll get past it.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm gonna give you two names, and you tell me which one you feel like needs to get a bigger push. Big Swole or Abaddon?
Oh, I know Big Swole a lot more, and I've seen her wrestle live. I haven't seen Abaddon that much, and so I really can't say. But my push is to push Big Swole.
There you go.
There you go, Joe.
Yeah, no, that's perfectly fine. I look, I like both of them. I think, and again, I like Abaddon's character because I just like her character. I like what she's doing with that angle, and again, her entrance is phenomenal. I'm sure, and just from what I've seen, Big Swole is the better of the two wrestlers. I don't think there's any question in my mind with that. I would like to see both of them push more, to be honest, and get both of them in a title picture eventually, because I think they both have a lot of upside. So I agree. I think they're both very good. But I think technically, I think Big Swole is just a better technical wrestler. So yeah. Well, listen. We've got what is the equivalent of a pay-per-view coming up on TV, which is actually really cool with AEW. So I know you did a prediction video on a prediction podcast. I listened to it earlier today. So you've got your picks over there. If anybody wants to check that out, please go ahead and do that. But listen, I got to ask you, so the stuff about the fiction that you are looking to do, how did that get started, and where is it that you would like to go with that?
So I'm basically a writer by trade, right? So I tried 29 times before WWE decided to pick me up, even though I wasn't for their writer department. But it was always in me to at least get some type of novel down, whether it be a fantasy novel, and I've tried those, and those manuscripts are like on the back burner. But the one thing that I knew that I could probably accomplish is a wrestling novel. And luckily the market is not saturated, so I have a good chance of like being a millionaire. But other than that, so it's just basically you're following the main character's journey. And this is the first time that I'm trying to write in a male's perspective. because I've always, any type of story that I ever written, whether it be for like school or yes, fan fiction and regular fiction, it's always been from a female's perspective because I know myself, like I know my quirks and stuff like that, so it's easier. So this is the first time that I'm writing up from a male's perspective. The main character is on a journey to try to find out what happened with his dad in the wrestling business because he disappeared. His dad left a note explaining some stuff about what happened before his disappearance. And now he's in the wrestling business, going from indies to the grand stage and just trying to fit all the pieces together. And along the way, he'll have help from, his main love interest and other people from the business and stuff like that. Currently, the prologue is completely done. I'm into chapter 1, and I have a snippet of the prologue over on my wrestling newsletter on the Substack side, which people can read. Because eventually, what I would like to do is give you guys the chapters, have you read them, and comment on them, so that way you guys could be like beta readers. And towards the end, whoever decides to donate money, obviously, because I would like some help with creating the book, of getting like a really good cover and maybe a second editor. Whoever decides to donate, their name will be at the end of the book as a thank you. I haven't set up my paid subscriptions yet over on the newsletter side, but after chapter 3 and beyond, that's when it can either be $5 a month or $60 a month. Your name will be in the back of the book as a thank you, and you guys get to read the very first draft of the wrestling novel.
That's cool. That's awesome. So you're making it almost so it's almost kind of like a mystery type of thing, but you're setting it in like the wrestling world. That's pretty cool.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. That's exciting. I love to have the time to do that. I've often said that. I've always been a writer as well. I went to school for journalism back in the day. So, that's awesome. Well, yeah. Hey, I wish you all the best with that. That's amazing. And you're right. It's something that you don't see much. You don't see very much of it out there. So, that's really awesome. That's really cool. So what do you think about Fyter Fest? I mean, are you excited for it? I know we've got 2 consecutive weeks. Are you excited? Do you think there's going to be a lot of change there? I mean, a lot of times when they have these they're kind of like pay-per-views on TV, but they're kind of not. And a lot of times in these things, they don't usually change many things. Like WWE just did their thing on Monday Night Raw, not this week, but the week before, about where all the titles are on the line, right? They put all the titles up. But actually, nothing really changed except for the 24/7 title, which changes all the time. So, do you think they're gonna make some changes here during this, or is it going to be kind of just a thing where, they're really plugging this, they're hyping it up, but we're not really going to see too many changes in titles?
I want to say not too many changes in titles. I could definitely probably say that Cody Rhodes would definitely keep the TNT Championship, because he's doing really well with doing the open challenges and having like random wrestlers come on and fight him for it and stuff like that. So that's not going to change. I don't think the TNT network is going to take the title off of him. The tag team championships, I do not want them to change, only because if you guys go to my YouTube channel and hear the first part of the predictions, I give like a fantasy matchup of like why Kenny Omega and Heyman Anapay should hang on to the titles and who they should relinquish the titles to in the future. So those 2, I don't want them to change. The women's title, I mentioned that is way too early for Shida to give it to Penelope. But if they do give it to Penelope, I hope they have some type of creative plan to like make her like jump forward and defend it. Who else is defending a title?
Cody Rhodes.
Oh, yeah, but I mentioned that Cody is gonna probably retain the title, because then I got to take it off him. Now we're in a predicament of if we're gonna get Moxley to Fyter Fest because of what happened with Renee and her contacting COVID. Like, that's going to be changed. So, with some miracle in a perfect world, if this shit never happened, I would have said that Moxie was going to retain only because, it's too early in Brian Cage's AEW career to get the belt. Who else has a title? Did I mention all the titles?
I think you did. Women's, men's,
Yeah.
Cody. Yeah, I think you did. Yeah.
But yeah, I honestly think no titles are going to change.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. And I'm going to, like I said, we're doing our predictions a little bit later on. But yeah, I would kind of agree with you. I think that when they do these things on TV like this, it's obviously to try to hype up the show a little bit, get a little bit more people watching than normal. But a lot of times what you see is they really kind of tend to not change a lot of things on these kind of shows, and it's the same thing with NXT. I don't really expect any major titles changing there with Bash at the Beach also, because I just don't think they're going to do that anymore. That was kind of a thing that you used to see the old WCW do back in the 90s, and they didn't have a lot of luck with that. So I don't really think they're gonna give us that during just a regular show. What do you think is the future of AEW? I mean, you said that you like what they're doing so far. Let's take the promotion out 5 years from now, when they've got a 5-year deal, obviously, with the TNT thing on TV. Let's take it 5 years from now. Where do you see AEW in 5 years from now down the road? Do you see them being successful? Do you kind of see them being in the same position they are now? Or do you kind of see them as a big challenger to WWE, maybe even, where they're going to go up against like SmackDown or Raw?
Well, right now they are WWE's biggest competition, only because AEW is doing a lot of things right than WWE. WWE is just floating there, and they don't know what to do. For AEW in 5 years, I see them still being the success that they are. As long as they keep going with it, and maybe open up like 1 or 2 writer positions so I can finally get in there and help out, that'd be great. I just see them having a lot of success. Maybe 1 or 2 writer position open, and I get to be there and help guide them. Because sometimes you do need someone to pull back the reins and be like, wait a minute, this storyline doesn't make sense if we do that. You can't just do this on a whim, and it might not work or whatever. But I give them all the luck in the world.
Yeah, I'm excited. I think it's exciting times again that we're seeing, because we're back in the times of the, when it was WCW Nitro against Raw, and you had that build up, and you had them kind of going at each other. And usually when you have 2 people competing is when you get the best content. Unlike when you got one promotion out there doing everything, it kind of gets flat, gets a little boring. There's nobody pushing them, and I think it's exciting. And so listen, I again, good luck with your book. Good luck with getting a writing job. That would be amazing. Tell all our guys out there where they can find you on social media. Tell them about tell them where they could find your podcast and stuff as well.
All right, guys. So once again, I'm Marie Shadows. I am the creator of the Square Circle podcast. You guys can definitely find me on Twitter at Marie_Shadows. I talk to everyone and anyone there. You can also find my wrestling newsletter, which talks about AEW, which you guys can get a preview of the novel I just talked about on here. You could go to squaredcirclepodcast.substack.com. And if you guys want to listen to all the backlog of my podcast episodes, you can definitely go to anchor.fm/Square Circle Podcast. And that's where you can find me.
Awesome. I think Jeff's got another question. Jeff, do you have something else?
I do.
Cool.
I have one last question
Sure.
here. In your opinion, what is the best storyline going in professional wrestling today?
I'm gonna be biased, like super biased. I can never get enough of the dynamic between Hangman Adam Page and Kenny Omega, whether or not they're tag team champions or they are with the Young Bucks. only because that story is so deep, and that story, anyone can resonate with that story because it's like Hangman is basically at the lunch table with the popular kids, but he just somehow got in there because, he likes editing and likes making stupid videos. But he doesn't feel complete with them. That's not really his crowd. So that storyline, could definitely keep going, and people could definitely relate to that. And that's one of my favorite things to like watch and keep up with, and just analyze like the emotions and stuff like that.
That's a good call.
Yeah.
That's a good call because Jeff and I have talked about that a lot too when we talk about AEW, because you're always kind of wondering when Hangman Page is going to do something. You're wondering, is this the week that he's going to turn and he's going to go up again? He's going to turn on Kenny, and then it doesn't happen. So it's long-term storytelling, like we talked about earlier. I agree with you. I think that's a great call.
Yeah.
Great call. Well, listen, it has been an absolute pleasure having you with us. We really enjoyed talking with you today. And again, like I said, I wish you all the luck with the book, obviously. And I hope all the guys out there go and check that out. Check out Marie's website as well. Check out her Twitter and check out her YouTube and the podcast as well. Please stay in touch because I'd love to hear a success story from you. If you do get picked up by someone as a writer, that would be amazing. We would love to hear from you again.
Of course, man. Anytime.
Awesome. Well, hey, thank you so much for being with us today, and we will talk to you very soon.
All right. Thank you guys so much. It was super fun.
Awesome. Well, take care. We'll talk to you again.
You too. Bye.